Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It is your Capes Crusader, Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our brand new friend, Ryan Drost of Stealth Hammer. How are you doing? Welcome to the show today, man.
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. I had big shout out. I really appreciate you sending me the PDFs for issue 1 and 2. I had the opportunity to read both of them. And holy crap, Jamie is a beast. I can't wait to break down more of her story, and we're actually going to get the opportunity to dive into issue 1. But before we even begin that, Ryan, why don't you give me a little bit of a breakdown of who you are and how you got into comics?
Sure. So I always tell people I got into comics the really long way, which was I collected comics for a while. I actually didn't get into comics until I was like in my teens. So I'd get one or two, but I got heavy into comics in my teens, and have a massive collection, of course, now at this point in my life. But yeah, then I started doing a podcast about 12 years ago called Star Joes, where we were talking before the show. It's all about 80s properties, so the stuff I grew up with, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Star Wars, all that stuff. And which is all very relevant today. Yeah.
We're supposed to be getting some new G.I. Joe stuff here soon, aren't we?
Yes. Oh, there's a bunch of G.I. Joe stuff. They've been doing the classified line, which is the 6-inch scale figures, which is just super impressive. And HasLab has been doing like their version of like a Kickstarter project where they make these big, massive things. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. We won't talk about the Snake Eyes movie. That was a little lackluster, but to put it kindly.
Not to interrupt, but the one thing I always hate too is like growing up, like I have kids of my own, so I buy them those toys, of course, and I'm like, man, if only I was a kid during this era, because the toys are so much cooler.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know. I love the vintage stuff, but I look back at it compared to what's come out now, and I'm like, wow, my toys were nowhere near this. Like,
yeah, the arms moved up and down, and like these guys are all like
like they looked this awesome in my mind, but they didn't look this awesome in reality.
They didn't play nearly as good.
No. So yeah, we've been doing the show for 12 years. Lately, it's been a little bit more slower, just because a lot more going on in my life. But yeah, we have a blast. And while we were doing the show, so this plays into getting into the comics, is we did a lot of reviews on the comics that were coming out. That was the main focus on the show.
The G.I. Joe and Star Wars ones?
G.I. Joe, Star Wars, yeah. And then as we kept reviewing them, they kept getting more and more titles coming out. So Transformers came out, TMNT came out, like like all that stuff. And then while we were doing these reviews, we had someone who's a good buddy of ours now, Robert Atkins, who was a very well-known G.I. Joe artist in the comics, reached out to us, and he went on our forums and was like, hey, I'm Robert Atkins, thought I'd introduce myself and listen to your show, and I draw the comics that you guys have been talking about. And
oh my God, how did that feel?
Oh my God. So my co-host at the time, Chuck, he calls me up, which he doesn't, nowadays, even back then, no one calls, they text. So he's calling me and I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong? He's like, dude, Robert Atkins is on our forum and he's talking about the show and everything else. He sounded like a little schoolgirl, which was just awesome. And then I was freaking out because of it. So he's like, yeah, if you want me to come on the show, I'll talk about, I'll come on and talk about the comics and art and everything else. So we had him on the show. Super awesome guy, totally into all these things that we were into. And he was so much fun, we just kept having him on. And then we had other creators come on and stuff, and we started doing that, kind of like what you're done with your show. You started doing, and all of a sudden it's like people just start coming out saying, hey,
it's like you can't stop. It's like,
right. Right. And so then, so we kept having him on. Next thing I know, I'm like sharing a hotel room with him at a convention, and we're texting, and like he's one of my closest friends now.
That is so insane,
right?
That is so insane. What do you think younger Ryan would be feeling at that moment?
Oh, younger Ryan would be freaking out and I'll tell you, one of the things that we did too is we interviewed Bill Ratner, who did the voice of Flint on the G.I. Joe show.
Okay.
Cartoon.
Dude, that's so awesome.
And Flint is my favorite character in G.I. Joe. So little 8-year-old Ryan was freaking the hell out.
Was it hard not to fanboy when talking to him?
Oh yeah, because he sounds just like him. So yeah, you're totally fanboy.
You're like, say the thing.
Right. So, and in fact, with him, just a quick side tangent, he reached out to me shortly after the show and was like, hey, do you happen to have any like Flint action figures that I could borrow for a one-man show that I'm doing. And I was like, yeah, give me your address, I'll send them out to you. So, and then he sent them back to me. So I was like, it was awesome, like to have that type of connection with him after the show.
Yeah, that is so crazy.
Yeah,
I love it.
Very, very cool. So yeah, then we had more people on. I had more creators on. Shannon Gallant, who did G.I. Joe. Brian Shearer, who's done several things with Transformers and G.I. Joe. Like we've had a ton of creators. I had Mark Wade on to talk about his Princess Leia miniseries. So like again, just kind of building this up. And then of course, because you're doing that, you start hearing about people and their personal projects, and they're creating their stories and everything else. And much like how the podcast started, which the podcast started with Chuck turning to me one day and going, hey, I think we could do a podcast, because he was listening to him also. And it was just like, okay, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened with doing the comic here, where it was just kind of like, I want to tell a story too. I have stories I want to tell. So, and now I had this whole network of people that I could reach out to and get advice on and get connections with, like, hey, I'm looking for a colorist, who would you recommend who can do this type of work and everything else, looking for an artist and stuff. So yeah, without the podcast, I would never be doing this comic.
That's kind of, so with Keeping It Geekly, like right when I hit like my 100th interview, I let people know that I was going to start like trying to write my own script here, and I had an outpour that like when you talk about that network, that outpour of people just like, here, well, check this out. This is what I was looking at. You're like, I couldn't like stop the responses. It was so, and every single one was just amazing, because it was something that helped that individual like get their story. So that network is like crucial. So was Stealth Hammer like your first venture into creating a comic?
Yeah, very first venture into
it's
creating
gorgeous.
comics.
Holy crap.
Well, so here's the thing, because I have a background with like interviewing people and knowing their artwork, and obviously a huge backlog of reading comics and everything else, I knew the look I wanted. And I'm someone that, like, when I know what I want, I go for it and everything. And so I reached out to, first off, and we'll get into this a little bit, but the Stealth Hammer, the inspiration is my wife. So Stealth Hammer is actually a nickname that she has. So we always joked around it'd be a great superhero name.
And, so tell us about that nickname. You can't just be like, her nickname's Stealth Hammer, we're gonna just gloss over this. Like,
so she works as a graphic designer, which is extremely helpful for the comic also. This was, I joke sometimes saying it was a long con to have her as my wife for the last 20 years, just so that I could have her free work for this comic. But no, she's amazing support, and she does so much to really help me out. But yeah, she works as a graphic designer. At one place that she worked at, to give the quick short version, is that the owner was looking for submissions for a client, and a bunch of people were submitting multiple submissions, and she was like, well, do you mind if I submit one? And he was like, no, go ahead. So she submitted one. The client chose hers out of all the ones that were submitted. So the next time he sent out a message saying that they were looking for submissions, he's like, and watch out for Stealth. And so that kind of became her nickname, which is a really cool nickname.
Yeah.
Then she worked at another company where she was like in charge of brand compliance. So she was the one that, had to make sure that they were using the right color, the right size, all that type of stuff, right font. So her boss would say like, oh, you're the one that has to lay the hammer down. And she's like, well, I already have a nickname of Stealth. So she just put the two names together, called it Stealth Hammer, and it's stuck ever since. So
no, I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I love
yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I love the graphic artist touch to it. Like with in issue 1, like right off the rip in the beginning, it looked like a Photoshop layout. I love the little nods to that too.
Yeah, and that was something I went to my letterer, Dave Sharp, who's been in the industry for a very long time, and it's amazing. I told him, I was like, I want something that looks like something someone in their teens nowadays would do, because no one today is going to do a journal in a regular notebook. At least a teen isn't typically going to. So I was like, make it look like she's writing down on a tablet or something like that. So he did that look, and I loved it. So, but yeah. For one of her birthdays, I went to Baltimore Comic-Con and had her drawn as a superhero. And I told her, like, here's Stealth Hammer, gave it to her on her birthday, and she loved it. But seeing it physically, like a superhero that was Stealth Hammer physically drawn, was what I was like, okay, maybe we actually have something here.
Genius.
Yeah.
I love like, hey, here's a commissioned art for you, but also character model for me. Like,
Right. Exactly.
I'm on to you, Ryan. We have J. Michael Miller over on YouTube stopping in saying into the Geekly verse. I think you're on. I like that. J. Michael. I think you're onto something, and we're gonna do something with that. So let's dive back into Stealth Hammer, though. You get that character model. What's next? I mean, some ideas started brimming.
So yeah, literally. So I related to this, and certainly not at this level yet of legendary status. So hopefully one day. But I always hear the story about Paul McCartney writing the song Yesterday, and how he woke up with this song in his head and he wrote it out in like 15 minutes. It's kind of what happened with Stealth Hammer, where it was like the second I thought, okay, this could be something, ideas were flooding in my head. We were in a shopping plaza when it finally like popped in my head, because we were on vacation for her birthday, and like we're just kind of shopping around, and I start going like, well, maybe this, and I just pulled my phone out and started typing on a note thing, note app. And just started putting all the ideas down, and like thinking about, okay, who's her family, who's her friends, who's her villains, how'd she get her powers, what's her mission, what is she gonna be doing, what obstacles is she gonna face, and like typing them all out. And I think everything that I typed out that day, other than one item, is actually in the story. So there wasn't much departure from what originally sprung in my mind. So
what was that one item?
So the one item I thought about having, she does have a dog as a pet. I thought about her having like also a chameleon as a pet, and I was like, it just got to be too much to try to fit that.
I can see that being too much. I like the dog.
Yeah.
I think the dog was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Who's the grouchy neighbor modeled after?
Well, first I will tell you the dog is actually a nice moment for us, because we actually had a Labradoodle dog named Hannah, and she sadly passed away a few years ago. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And we thought a great way to immortalize her was to put her in the story.
Was purple like her color?
Yes. Yeah. So it worked out very well that we had her in there. So, so the neighbor, Mr. Fredericks, what I was going for was kind of like a Carl Winslow from Family Matters.
Yeah.
Meets I'm blanking on his name, but the neighbor from Dennis the Menace, Mr. Wilson.
Okay.
So that's why he was called Mr. Fredericks, because I'm like, I want a Mr. Wilson type character, like this grouchy guy that, we'll find out he has a heart of gold still, but yeah, I wanted that angry neighbor to kind of like play off of just a little bit. Had a little.
I get it though.
Yeah.
I get it. Half his house got blown up. Like, that's no small
Yeah.
thing. Like, I totally understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Shaking at 3 a.m. I get mad when I'm like hearing noise. When it's 12, maybe I'm just a boomer or something, Right.
No, but when when your neighbor is playing like just loud music, you're just like, okay, come on, man, it's like 11 o'clock at night. Can you turn it down a little bit? So yeah, I wanted that neighbor, and yeah, we'll find out that he as we go, like he cares about Jamie and looks out for her, much like I said, I always felt like Mr. Wilson looked out for Dennis the Menace. So but I wanted that grouchy neighbor, and like you said, he has every right to be grouchy. So but I also love how Dr. Everett plays off of him. Like he kind of just dismisses him, like, oh yeah, okay, whatever.
So give us a little bit of a synopsis for issue 1. Like, what are we looking at happening, and kind of our protagonist as well.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do was, and I've heard this said on a few people that reviewed it, and I'm like, oh, good, that's what I was going for. Is they were like, it's fast paced, it happens really quick. I wanted a quick origin story. I wanted her to get her powers, and let's just go from there, because the story really ultimately isn't about her getting her powers. It's about family. It's about legacy. It's about this journey. I refer to it as superhero adventure, because it's a tale, it's a saga. It's not just, okay, I'm gonna patrol the city and stop crime. Like there's depth to it.
Yeah.
So, and when we get into the issue, this is something also that you'll see, and you probably picked up on some of these things, is I kind of refer to my writing like Chris Claremont type writing, because everything matters in it. If there's something in the background, if there's a certain sentence that's said, all these things matter either very soon or somewhere down the line. I want people, when they're reading issue 5, to go, oh my God, that was in issue 1.
Yeah.
So So everything is in there for a reason. The studio, the judo studio being called Kodama Studios, like my artist knew to reach out to me. He's like, "What do you want to call the studio?" He says, "Because I know you're not calling it just Judo Studio."
So is that a judo studio that was like close to your guys' area?
No, it's just I'm pulling from a lot of mythologies from around the world, and Kodamas are tree spirits in Japanese folklore.
Ooh, I like that.
So we're gonna play with that down the line, and I want people, like, when we introduce the Kodama, for people to be like, "Oh my God, that was the name of the studio." In issue 2, we finally see the name of the town is Lioness, and there is no Lioness in the United States. There is a Lioness City in London. Or in the UK, I should say, not London, but in the UK. But there's no Lioness in the US, which was really cool, because then it gets to become like my Gotham or Metropolis or something like that. I can do whatever I want with it. But Lioness is believed to be the last battle location of King Arthur. And if you've seen the cover of issue 2 and the double page spread in issue 2, you know that King Arthur plays into her family legacy. So I wanted to put things in there like that kind of like.
Why is that so important for you to do that?
To me, it's about everything is about story. So everything it should be revolved around story. I know there's a lot of things nowadays where it's like, okay, we want to make sure that we're representing this and we're doing these types of stories, and all that's important, absolutely 100% important. But to me, everything should be driven by the story. So I want there to be connections for people. I want there to be that rereadability. I want people to go back and reread it and pick something up from it the second time that maybe they didn't pick up the first time. So I want it to be visually stimulating. My artist Joel Jackson is amazing, and
yes.
he has this, like, I wanted a cartoony style that was also detailed, and when I saw his artwork, I was like, oh my God, yeah, this is perfect. This is what I want. So he can do that. He puts these things in there, and sometimes he puts stuff in that I didn't put in the script, and then it becomes part of the story. So the Labites that are mentioned in issue 2 and are on the cover of issue 1, he put a little robot on Dr. Everett's shoulder as like a little sketch to show me like how he would draw Dr. Everett. And I was like, oh, that was really cool. What's the little robot? And he was like, oh, I just thought, like, he's so busy and he's so kind of like all over the place that he would need assistants to kind of help him. And I was like, oh, I love that idea. Yeah, definitely go with that. Next thing you know, we get a cover image and there's 8 robots on there. And I texted him, I was like, I have to come up with names for all these things now and personalities. But it was like in a good way though too. So I'm like, oh my God, now I got something else I can play with. And they've kind of become like my batteries not included type little robots and everything else I get to do. And again, not trying to introduce too much at one time. In issue 2, we kind of introduced 3 of them. There are 8 total. And as stories go on, we might have some adventures with just them and stuff. So
what's, it seems like it would be really a challenge to try to make sure everything is lining up perfect. What's that creative process look like for you when you're, relaying your ideas to your artist?
Yeah. So what I do is, I do obviously write a full script, but I lay out every single panel. I do give him the complete freedom, and I say, like, if you decide that, I put down there's 6 panels on here and I write out what happens in each panel and the dialogue and everything. But I tell him, I was like, if you feel like you can tell the exact same thing in 5 panels or 4 panels, do it. If you think you need 9 panels, do it. I trust him completely with the layout and everything else, but it's more of a guide for him. Now, when I'm writing the story, what I do is I play a lot of it in my head. I'm just someone that, like, I think of multiple scenarios and everything else, how they impact each other. I can never turn my brain off. But what I will do is I will actually do what I call a writer's storyboard. So much like you'd see for a movie where you kind of lay everything out in its little figure images or whatever. I kind of do that, but with words. So I actually literally will draw out like multiple pages, the squares, and then I write little bullet points in each one of like, this is what's going to happen on this page. And then it kind of gives me an idea of like, okay, am I cramming too much into this page? Do I need to move something over to here? It also helps me with the pacing. Like, okay, I want that page turn for that big reveal to happen right here. So I need to line this up so that happens. So it allows me to move stuff around, and then I take that outline and I go and write the actual script.
I love that. I mean, I love just hearing just how that creative process works for everybody, because it's always a little bit different. And even though it might seem like it's just intense for someone, like the way you explained it just makes perfect sense. The way, you know, you do the bulletin points and everything to see if there's too much going on, like that visual has to be like such an awesome tool for you.
It is, and I'm a very visual person, which helps with the artist. And I'm an okay artist, which nowhere near at the level I wanted to have. But it helps when I'm like, I can send him a drawing and say, here's roughly what I had in mind for this character or for this look and things like that. And then he, of course, comes back with something like 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
But to go back to your original question that caused us to get all the way here, the basis of the story is so Stealth Hammer, she's a college student. Her dad's like this well-renowned scientist. She has, of course, an evil uncle, because everyone has to have an evil uncle. And she's bringing her boyfriend home to meet her dad. And the boyfriend is based on me, so Kyle is loosely based on me. He is uses humor as a defense mechanism, and he's very socially awkward at times and a klutz. But so she's bringing him home, and an accident happens, and due to sabotage, and she gains these powers. And there's multiple reasons why they happen, and we find out down the line that this was always meant to happen. Things in her family, she has this family legacy of protectors or guardians.
Yeah,
and
then so not to interrupt, but since we're here, it was interesting because in issue 2, like I thought that was an interesting fake out almost, because it's almost like that explosion caused her powers, but when you read issue 2, you find out that this is something that's actually like in her heritage, like in her family line. Like, so what was the cause for that? That was a nice little change up.
So it was something I always wanted to do. So my big thing with this was, again, I grew up with the 80s stuff. So I grew up with like stuff that I love, like He-Man and Thunder the Barbarian stuff. And I always loved the mix of mythology and supernatural along with like technology and robots and everything else. So I always refer to this as like the spirit of Miss Marvel with powers of Iron Fist and Invisible Woman living in a world of Mega Man meets Jim Henson's Creature Shop.
Okay.
So it's a love letter to all these things that I grew up with, that I actually loved and wanted to be in the story, but I also wanted to make sure that I wasn't forcing them into the story. So in issue 1, there's just that little hint of a line that there's more to this than what we think. And it's when she's leaving, and her dad says, like, I thought this was over. And it's just that little line that makes you go, okay, there's something more going on here. And then I didn't want the reader to wait too long, so we kind of get into issue 2, and then there's that double page spread where it's just like, okay, this is what you're in store for.
I do like too, at the end of issue 1, it seemed like we got a more advanced like backstory, just a few pages.
Yes.
It seems like there's like this huge grandiose like universe and world just waiting for us, and I love how you just keep teasing it. Yeah.
So the stories that I've always loved growing up were like, I am a huge fan of like Alice in Wonderland and Labyrinth and Dark Crystal and Wizard of Oz and things like that, where you start off with this one character and maybe just the supporting cast around him or her, and then the world just kind of keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and next thing you know, you have this huge mythological world and universe that they're living in. And that's what I want to do. I want the reader to come along with Stealth Hammer on this journey of like this world getting bigger. So.
And so Stealth Hammer is also an all ages story. That was a really interesting way to go about things as well. What drove you to go that route?
Yeah, so I think there's great stuff out there for kids, but in my opinion, there's never enough. I know you had George Medina on, and he mentioned this, and I totally agree with this, that I'm 46 years old. I want someone else later on to be 46 years old and still love comics as much as I do. And the only way we're going to do that is by getting a younger audience in. So that was important to me. And then an inspiration for me too was a writer artist that I knew, Jeremy Dale, who was incredible. Sadly, he passed away. He was doing Skyward, which was this incredible fantasy world, and it's one of my favorite series ever. And sadly, he passed away after issue 9 came out, and his wife actually helped make sure one more issue was made to kind of complete a story.
That's really
legacy,
cool.
Which
That's
is very cool. But I'm like, okay, this guy went out there and told this all ages story, and for me, I loved it as much as any kid would love it or anything like that. So I was like, that's the type of story I want to tell. I want to tell a story where you never have to worry about who you're giving this to, because anyone can read this at any age and hopefully they can enjoy it. And I've had people literally from age 6 to age 94 read this comic and enjoy it. So it's been pretty awesome.
That's so cool. That is awesome. That is awesome. So I think we kind of did enough breaking down. Let's actually take an opportunity to look at issue 1.
Sure.
And while we're doing that, where can people find issue 1 and issue 2 for sale? Like where are you able to buy it?
So right now we are working on trying to get it. We're going to get on a couple digital platforms. So we're working on looking at Comixology and Global Comics. And then we're even looking at self-publishers and things like that to get on Amazon and whatnot. Right now, they can go onto our different social media platforms and contact me directly. So we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. Just look up Stealth Hammer, you'll find us. Message me. I make it very easy for you to make your payment and get it out to you right away. We have digital available for 1 and 2. We have print available for number 1. The print copy of number 2 is going to be should be here in the next 2 weeks. So
exciting! Let's go. Yeah.
So, and we have 2 different covers for both of them. So, I was blessed to have. So the one that you're seeing right there, that's which is actually right here as well. That was done by my buddy Robert Atkins, who I mentioned earlier. So he helped me out by doing a cover there, and then
that is so cool for your first issue. How awesome!
And then this one was done by Joel, where you get all those labites I was mentioning about. We got the whole cast of characters, and some of them we don't even really see much of them in the
especially these guys too. Well, no, these guys are shown at the very end, right?
Very end, the wolf rats, so, and those were the name, even though the characters are original, like what the wolf rats are, the names of them, Chernobog and Belobog, come from mythology as well.
We get a glimpse of her too at the it's like a very quick glimpse. Like, I'm very observant, so you'll find that I'm a very observant reader.
I want you to be in this comic, so that's good. Marzana, she is a Polish deity of death. And I learned about her from watching an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Okay, I love it. Let's go. So let's scroll down. This is the variant cover.
Yep.
And then the credits as well.
Yep. So my artist is Joel Jackson. We've talked about him a bit, but he's incredible. I met him through reaching out and trying to find an artist with the style I was looking for. My wife reached out to her old classmate. She went to Notre Dame in Indiana, and with her being a graphic designer, she reached out to her classmates and said, "Hey, this is Ryan's looking to do this. Do you know anyone that does this type of art?" And one of her old classmates said, "Yeah, my buddy Joel does it, and he's, I can send you his information." I saw links to his stuff. I was like, "This is the guy." And then it just so happens he lives in Columbus, so he's not too far away.
Okay.
So we have been able to meet up and everything else. But yeah, we'll text, we'll call, we work through the script and everything else. And
that's awesome.
Ross,
it looks like he also drew his brother in here too.
Yes, he did. So we had fun. This was during the Kickstarter. We had some people back it to actually be characters in the issue, and so his brother was in there. Mike Watson is another comic creator. Elena Edwards is someone that has folled my podcast and everything else. Wanted his daughter to be in the issue, which was really awesome. So that's really cool. Rock is a good. Rock and Eric are both longtime buddies, and then Ian Hummel is the host of a kids show on Facebook and everything else. So he was a big supporter of getting us known as the Shazbots. And then Rachel was another backer that was friends with Joel. And then Ross Hughes, he's worked in comics for a long time. Like I was mentioning Dave earlier, he's worked on Justice League and Green Lantern and things like that. That's so
awesome, yeah.
And then Evan Evans is his color assistant. He's also used Julio in the past. And then Lacey Hart is actually Evan's daughter, and he was teaching her how to do flatting, which is a coloring technique.
That is awesome, dude.
And he's like, do you mind if I have her work on some of this? I was like, no, if it comes out great, I don't care. And I totally gave her credit for that. And then
yeah, that is so cool that she had her first like chance to work on a
yeah,
comic like that. Yeah,
it was very cool. And it was awesome having a kid work on an all ages comic too.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And then Alexandra Scott, she was my original artist. She's the one that did the 5-page backup story with me. She came up with the original, worked with me to get the original sketches and everything else. And then Quinn Johnson's been a longtime friend, and I asked him if he'd be willing to edit the first issue because he's been writing stuff for a long time. He actually did a Tales of the TMNT issue at one point.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that was cool. And then, then this little person who was like the inspiration of everything, my wife there, she came up with the logo and the title art and helped me put together like this credits page. And she does a lot of stuff that just, she never wants to take credit, but man, I couldn't do this without her.
That is so awesome. Does how does she feel about having a whole like comic 2 issues out already that's inspired by her?
She loves the fact that she's a superhero. So and it doesn't hurt to have that as brownie points. So as a husband. So
now going through this a second time, I'm looking just to see everything that I might have missed that might come into importance later on. You know, we see so many cool things at the top and you know, a sword, a gauntlet right there.
Yep.
Are these comics, you know, what are these?
So those comics were comics that Joel had actually worked on in the past. They were like little one-shots that he had worked on. So he threw those in there and everything. But yeah, this one page, that first page is the one where it's like, you could probably go back to this multiple times as the series goes on and go, oh my God, there's that, there's this and everything else. Like you see little broken up Watts in the corner. The sword up there is Excalibur.
Scrolls.
So yeah, and like even there's little things like even on the desk near her laptop is her necklace hanging there. So it's just that little bit of gold on the right that is.
So I see 2 globes too. Does that mean there's 2 different worlds?
We're gonna be playing with some alternate worlds, alternate realities.
he's like, shh, Cody, stop.
No, that's good. No, we're gonna be dealing with some alternate dimensions. So, and we'll talk about that as we go further into the issue. So
we see her leaving her judo class, and you said that Komoda is gonna have more relevance in later issues.
Yeah,
this is where she meets up with her boyfriend.
Yeah, and the studio was the judo studio was important to me because I always hated it when someone would get powers and all of a sudden they know how to fight.
Yeah.
Like, so that's just a trope that it just drives me crazy. Like all of a sudden, so I wanted to establish earlier that she does know how to fight, and not only does she know how to fight, but she's a teacher. She's an instructor there. So it kind of gives the reader an idea without saying it outright that she knows how to fight. She knows how to handle herself. So. And then she meets her boyfriend Kyle, and Kyle is like he kind of just goes with the flow of whatever she wants. It was very important for me to have her, like I literally described it that she grabs him by the neck like a Looney Tunes cartoon character and just yanks him.
So this right here, is this her just running, or is this supposed to like show her like having like faster than normal speed?
She's running, but she's quick. Nothing superhuman about her just yet, but just kind of showing that motion that she's so far ahead of Kyle. And she's just moving, and that is a small wolf rat in the upper right.
I was gonna say
yes. So she's being watched. There's reasons people are keeping an eye on her. So.
And then we see her stopping the bus because they missed it. So that's basically after judo they missed the bus, so they were rushing to stop it.
And that's my buddy. Yeah, and that's my buddy Rock who backed it to be in the comic. And the great thing about that was that there's also some of these characters have taken on a life of their own. So like. Rock will appear as the bus driver again, actually in issue 3.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So we get to the house, and right here we get the first glimpse of the neighbor. He's like, "Tell your dad I was up again," and she's used to it. She's like, "Oh, nice seeing you again. Have a wonderful day."
Right. Exactly. And there's we work through different things too. Like this originally was all like one panel. But we wanted to show her talking to Mr. Fredericks, but also whispering to Kyle, and it just didn't work. So we actually, this is one where it's a very collaborative effort, and it was like, okay, can we just split it into 2 and everything else? But she kind of has her dad's personality there, which is kind of like, okay, you have a wonderful day, nice seeing you.
And I noticed when I was going through this page for the first time, these pictures, all of them were extremely detailed. I mean, so what's the story behind these? These are pictures of her grandma, right?
Yeah, so I just basically told Joel that I wanted a lot of photos in the house of the family, a lot of the grandmother, to show that the grandmother's kind of this adventure, and that's where Jamie gets it from, is that she gets that spirit of adventure from her grandmother. And but yeah, I wanted to kind of show, like, I just said show family photos in here if you'd like to, and kind of showing some of the adventures and everything else, and Joel went crazy. And
yeah, I love if we could zoom in a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, intriguing interior. So it looked like she was on a magazine cover at some point.
So that is actually her mom. That is her mom, Jessica, who is an interior designer, and she travels a lot because of it, which is why she's not appearing in this issue or the next one.
In the Robo Digest, is that the dad?
That's the dad. Yep, exactly. So, but yeah, the grandmother's on all these worldwide adventures and stuff like that. So.
And this was another interesting interaction too. We see the uncle. We don't know he's evil at this point,
right?
But you know, you do a good job too. And I noticed this off the rip when you were reading it. Like she gets caught off guard because she didn't know that he was there. Like, I didn't know you were working with Dad again. So there you're left with a question of, you know, what exactly happened. But
right, some type of falling out.
Yeah,
or, yeah, exactly. So.
It was interesting too because the dad's not there, but everything was left running.
Yes, and issue 3 will explain why the dad's wasn't there at the time. Because I had a few people going like, well, why wouldn't the dad be home if he knew he was gonna be meeting her boyfriend and stuff like that? Wouldn't that be and I'm like, that there's a reason he's not home. And here's something too that Joel did that you don't notice it, and you said you're a keen observer, so that it's something that. If you look very closely in that panel, Ari is right there. Ari the elf is right there. So, yeah, he put in things like that to kind of show for people to kind of notice and everything. So,
well, because you also get to see him right here in the little hat right there too.
Yep.
I love it. So, what was the inspiration behind a gnome? Like, he's such an awesome character.
So that was this right here, and my wife and I were blessed to go to a trip to Iceland, and it's a beautiful country. It's probably the best vacation trip I've ever had in my life, and the people are so nice and so friendly, but they do have mythologies there, much like any place else in the world, and one of their beliefs is in elves, and it's said that some of the people there really do believe in elves. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but you can see elf type culture. And yes, they all look like gnomes. So I get a lot of people going like, "Oh, that's a gnome," and of course I play off of that in issue 2, of him being called a gnome and not liking that too much. But but he he's I wanted to pull some of that in. That's where like some of the inspirations of her going to Iceland, since I had real world experience of being there and knowing like different environments that are there that are just so like you feel like you're not even on Earth anymore. In some of the places you're at. But they, the Aurora Borealis is there, and I remember watching a video while we were there that talked about the Aurora Borealis, and they referred to the goddess Aurora, and I was like, oh my god, that's so going to be a character in my story.
Yeah, no, that's so cool.
And then and we were in a little shop, and I saw this guy sitting there, and I was like, I'm going to have a little elf thing, and then I found this little guy, I'm like, that's Ari the elf, and I liked the idea of him having like this Where's Waldo type thing, so sometimes you have to like look for him in different scenes.
I like that aspect of it too, and then the throwback to the necklace too. So what's the importance of this necklace?
So this necklace is something that's been passed down over the years, generation to generation. We will see the origin of that down the line, because there will be some time travel involved in the story. She will go back to her ancestry. There'll be ways that she does that, and we'll see the origin of the necklace. But that necklace plays into her getting her powers, because if that necklace wasn't there, the explosion just would have happened, and that could have been disastrous for her being in that room. But because that necklace was there, it kind of channels the energy into her. Yeah,
we noticed there is a timer, and right away, it's time to run.
Yep.
And this was a pretty interesting scene too, where she trips.
Yes.
And she goes to shove him. And then, she takes the brute hit of the explosion, and then poor Kyle gets smashed by the door.
So two things with this. Well, one, if you scroll up just a little bit, you'll see that Ari is in the background there also. He's in that little. Oh,
right here.
I'm pointing at it like you could see see where I'm pointing. But yes, right there. And then, right in there. He does get out before the explosion happens. But I wanted to show that she has that heroic tendency before she even gets the powers.
Mm-hmm.
So her tripping and falling, but still being so focused to get Kyle out of the room was important to kind of show that. And then, yes, Kyle gets hit, and I had so many people that reached out to me after reading this and go, is Kyle okay? Because I kind of left it where we say that he's okay, but we never really like show that he's okay. So
Mm-hmm.
I had so many people that was their first reaction, like, is Kyle all right? And we did put some runes, Icelandic runes, in the little energy and everything else, so kind of showing that necklace is
Oh, so that is something I didn't notice right off the rip either, like right here.
Yeah, bunch of little, and those are Icelandic runes that I sent over to Joel. I was like, can we put some of these in there?
That's really cool.
Cool. Yeah.
So right here, she's getting her powers. She doesn't have any idea what's happening. Yeah.
Yep. She's disappearing. Her hands are lit up. Yeah, she doesn't know what's going on. And that was also something where I reached out to Dave. And I was like, can we have her words kind of starting to disappear also with her?
I like how, parts of her body is too.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then that's meant to be the necklace just in the distance, kind of glowing.
Oh, right there.
Yeah. It's the last bit of energy coming off of it. So. And this is where we have,
I was going to say, with her hair, what was the importance of having that little pink strip?
So that was kind of showing that a physical change. I wanted to show some type of physical change, because before it happens, she doesn't have it. We do see in that first page, however, that she does have it. So it's showing that very first page of the issue
is a flashback.
That she's writing about her past, and it was important to have that streak in there to kind of represent that. So yeah. But yeah, everything after that, she doesn't have it until the actual accident. I just wanted that physical manifestation of her now having powers, and and plus it's just cool looking. So
it gives me some Rogue vibes almost.
Yeah, exactly. But we get to have some fun with, like I said, the Mega Man technology, like it's over the top. I didn't want it to seem realistic in that sense. Like, this is meant to be a fun comics. I wanted it to be like, I wanted it to be that Kirby technology where it's like, you don't understand what any of it makes sense, but it all works. So yeah.
I love how she's, this is her like learning arc where she's like seeing what she's capable of, and how she's freaking out. So this is how she gets her little, she calls it her little cape, like a superhero.
Yes, exactly. And in that that little closet when he's digging in there, there's things, little nods to different things in there. There's like a little key from Transformers is up there.
This almost looks like R2-D2 right here.
Yeah, Joel put a bunch of stuff in there, and he sent me a key of what everything was in there and where he got the inspiration from, and I was like, whoa, dude, I had no idea. so he pulled some deep stuff. But yeah, basically if someone sees something in there and they're like, oh, that reminds me of this, it probably is that. So
So this cloak is interesting too. This helps, it's a prototype that was designed for stealth control suits for soldiers in the field. So what are we going to see this cloak capable of?
So there's a secret to the cloak. I don't want to reveal it, but there's something behind the cloak that kind of helps her as to why it helps her and everything else.
Okay.
So, but yeah, there's a reasoning behind it. So
I love this little fourth wall, like reading too many comic books.
yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's, like I said, that's where I say, like, she's like that Miss Marvel spirit, where she loves superheroes, she loves all this, she kind of embraces the fact that she got these powers and everything else.
So does he have like a robotic arm, or what is this, like a bracelet?
I've noticed this. Yeah, it's just a brace that he uses. He created it.
I gotcha.
It helps him with his technology, and like he can bring up the little boards up and everything else. But yeah, he has no. I think it mentioned in issue 2, if I remember right. He himself doesn't have any superpowers. He just is like crazy smart and come up
toolbox.
Yeah. He's basically like my Forge of X-Men.
So right here we find out that Alexander was removed from the project because he had his extreme methods and his outside influences, and we find out that he wasn't meant to be here, and this is where kind of the first mission for Jamie happens. Exactly. She's really insistent he needs to be stopped, and I kind of like this, how the father-daughter moment, like he doesn't want to let her go. And then she's trying to convince him, and he's like, well, if you're gonna go, then you're gonna go. I'm gonna make sure you're at least gonna be protected. So he outfits her with so much cool like stuff here. I really loved the belt, the coat, the motorcycle. Can you give us a breakdown of some of this stuff?
Yeah, so much like I was saying when it came to the judo studio, when it came to this, I didn't want it to be like she could just open up this pouch and have anything she needed to get her out of any situation. But at the same time, I wanted to come up with stuff where it's like she could get out of any situation, maybe with the things that she has. So I came up with the lockpick idea, the taser laser, like just coming up with things like that could be futuristic tech and everything else, but at the same time have some limitations to them. And then we realized with the smoke bombs, we could possibly make different types of bombs with that and everything.
Yeah.
The belt is her grandmother's, and so there's a bit of legacy being brought with this. Like, legacy is important for me. This is also showing that her dad's been working on stuff. So like he's been working for the government and different companies and everything else to produce things. And the thing that's important for him is that it's all non-lethal. So some of the stuff that she has, like the taser laser, it's a taser type gun. It has a few other uses for it, but everything for him was about protecting people and keeping people safe, and much like his family legacy. So there's nothing that's like deadly or anything like that he's creating. So
I really like these goggles as well.
Yeah.
Bluetooth communication, so they're able to talk back and forth.
Yeah, it's kind of obviously the inspiration for this was kind of like the Google goggles that came out a little while back, but a little bit more souped up and everything else. So but yeah, I like the idea that it's kind of for like her GPS. It's kind of like her way to communicate with her dad and everything. So,
and then the Hoverbike too. I love this Hoverbike. There's a little seat too.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun. So Joel sent me, I don't know how many drawing designs for the Hoverbike. And it's one of those things, again, when I see what I like, it just sticks with me. And he did this quick thing. I was like, can we go in that direction of this particular one? I would like highlight it and send it back over to him. And he came up with this thing, and it was just like, okay, cool. And then when we sent to the colors, I'm like, this is meant to be a prototype, so make it all gray, and we'll put color on it later and everything. I do want to come up with a name for the Hoverbike. I have not thought of one yet, but I feel like it deserves a name. Like every great vehicle needs its own name. So so eventually I will come up with a name for it. But
and then we get the official name drop. I love this too, the pose. This is so awesome.
Yeah, and we've used that for a few things. Like we actually have like a magnet that's made with that pose and that image. So but yeah, I love the fact that she just like pieced together the stuff that she said earlier and just like, okay, here's I'm gonna be Stealth Hammer. So
it's exactly how the nickname came about too. I love how you were able to put both of them together like that. Yeah,
exactly.
And then right here, the neighbor with the cops are coming to knock on the door, but then we see Jamie busting out of it. Yeah. I love that. And this is a cop that comes back too. He's in the second issue, isn't he?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, both of them are actually. Both of them come back for the second issue. And then that's where we get the line of the dad saying, "I dreaded this day coming. I wished it was all over by now." So that's where it gives the reader that hint that there's a little bit more to what's going on here. So
I love this little scene of we see her just like flooring it through, you know, oncoming traffic. And the dad coming up with his own nickname for Toolbox. This was one of the interesting moments I felt when we kind of seen the Hoverbike getting into stealth mode.
Yeah, exactly.
And she doesn't know if it's her causing it or if it's the bike itself.
Exactly. Yeah, she's still. I wanted to show she's still learning her powers, so she's not sure. Did her dad? And you know, she just got introduced to the Hoverbike, so she's like, did my dad do this or am I doing this?
So is the bike a conduit of like what she's capable of, or does it have stealth technology?
It does not have stealth technology.
Okay.
So she's doing this without realizing that she's doing it.
So she can make other things turn. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That opens up a whole world of possibility. I love it. Yeah. So right here we see the evil uncle and then two interesting people. This character is a really interesting one too. They were both backers. So I knew I had these two agents that I needed people to fill in the slots, and they were both backers that chose the reward to actually be in the comic. And they both are not human, I will tell you that. So we know in issue 2 that she is definitely not human. And I got to have a lot of fun kind of taking this little quick side character and kind of developing her more in the second issue. And did you ever watch an anime called Parasite?
I have not. No.
So in the second issue, with the camera, I don't want to spoil too much, so I'm just gonna say that, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That like I felt like that was a nod to Parasite, because in Parasite there's it's like a parasite that infects the hand, and it's able to like do that. It morphs into like blades and stuff. So I was like, dude, this is so cool. Like, this is awesome.
That could be what Joel was going for, because I know he's way more into the anime and manga scene than I have been. But my feedback to him was I wanted something. I wanted a shapeshifter character that could transform, and I gave him along the lines of like the T-1000 in Terminator 2, or the water creature in the movie The Abyss. So I kind of gave him those as springboards, and then he did this awesome like gross transformation that I think kids would absolutely love. Because like that was one of the things too my wife would say to me when we would show creepy characters like Marzana and stuff like that. She's like, this is supposed to be all ages, right? And I go, yeah. I was like, but it's all ages, like I said, mentioned earlier, like Labyrinth or Return to Oz or something like that that I grew up with, where it's like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is a great all ages thing, but that boat scene will scare the crap out of you. So that's what I was going for. I was going like, okay, we're not going blood and guts, but that doesn't mean we can't like get a little creepy with some things at times.
And we get a little indication there's a bigger foe out there than just these three, and they're actually saying his name wrong, which I thought was humorous too.
Yeah, so here's the funny thing with that, a little behind the scenes for you. I typed it wrong.
Called out.
So I completely typed it wrong, and then
what a good save though.
It went to the printer, and so then I was like, you know what? That's what this character is gonna do. She's gonna mispronounce names, and because she's not gonna care. She's not gonna have that type of respect and everything else. So
I mean, dude, like if it would have been like one letter off, like that would have been so. Like the fact that it was like an A and you could have just switched it out with a U was like just perfection.
Yeah, it was fun to do that, because like I said, it was like, okay, problem solved. How do I fix this, or do I just ignore it? Because that was a choice too. Like, do I just, hey, it was just a typo and it's
because who's gonna know, right? I mean,
exactly. So, but no, I was like, okay, this is gonna become part of that character now. So. Yeah.
That is so cool. I love that. And that's why I was telling you too, when we go through these issues together, it just opens up a whole different different thing. So we see Stealth Hammer arrives on the scene, and the uncle doesn't know right away that that's her. I feel.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. It's not until she actually kind of slips up and refers to him, that he's like, oh, okay, I know who this is.
You're not gonna run away forever, uncle. And then he's like, Jamie. I love the Beetle too. This kind of gave me Wild Wild West vibes. Yeah, it has a bit of that. It was it's definitely a nod to Bumblebee from Transformers. It's 100% a nod to that. And this was an example where I did a very crude drawing and sent it to Joel and said, here's kind of what I'm going for. And I was like, I'm looking for like Dr. Octopus arms coming out, that basically there's no way all this stuff fits into this little car. Yeah. And I love too, it comes a huge Gatling gun comes out of it.
Yeah.
And this is just very 80s. This screams 80s.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And we kind of see the first interaction between her and Toolbox.
Yeah.
Just like their first like going up against a major like villain or antagonist.
Yeah, and he doesn't know if he's gonna be able to save her. Like he gives her a suggestion, and again we'll kind of find out why he thought it might work in a future issue. But I mean, this isn't, again, it's not his first time experiencing someone with powers in the family. So
I love too. He's like, just smash them together to create an energy barrier, and he's like, I hope so.
Yeah.
And it was so cool too, because when she did like, it was such a cool like effect. I love this scene in particular.
Yeah, and the idea behind it is like a Tesla sphere, which is why that was mentioned earlier in the issue, was that he was, she absorbed a lot of the attributes of things that were in the room and everything else, and so she creates this like Tesla sphere that around her that just kind of protects her from the bullets and everything.
And another interesting action scene right here, we have all these missiles coming together. She goes to smash to make another energy barrier, but it breaks apart, so apparently it doesn't defend against everything. There's
limitations to it. It protects her from being killed, but it still knocks her for a loop. And that was important too. Like I didn't want her to just become like all powerful. Like I don't want an OP character. I want a character that has some limitations, can can be defeated at times and everything else.
I love this too.
Struggle.
In her like a moment of desperation.
Yeah.
You know, she's talking to herself, come on, get up. And then it's like, no, uncle, that's not how my story ends. And this is kind of like her trademark.
Yes.
Yeah, her yeah.
And that's a real tagline from my wife. That is something that she actually has said in real life, and I wanted to use it. But it also has like that meta quality to it, like we were talking earlier, where it's like, okay, you're reading a story, but it's also that's not how the story ends. So.
Oh my God, I was gonna say, Ryan, what did you do? Oh my goodness.
No, it's always been a phrase for my wife of like never giving up, which is a strong thing in this story too. That's a strong theme for Stealthhammer, is never giving up. And but yeah, anytime someone, you know, if someone was like, oh, it's too late for us to do that, she would be like, nope, that's not how this story ends, let's go get it. So.
And we kind of see her just like going Super Saiyan. It feels like she just has this big burst of energy. She is just going ham, punching off limb after limb. And I'm loving this detail too, just the way your artist was able to really capture everything in this moment. Like, it's just such chaos.
Yeah. And I will tell you again, behind the scenes, I had written down like the scene of her punching down on the ground and causing this chain reaction that knocks him in his robot vehicle off kilter was the very first scene that popped in my head.
Okay.
Like when I was thinking of this, I was like, I want that scene where she's just like pummels the ground and it sends this ripple effect and everything else. And Joel admittedly told me later he hates that effect in comics, so he wanted to. So he's like, he feels it's so cliched, which I agree it is. But he says, so I thought about it. Okay, how do I do it where I even like it? So, so that's where he came up with
That's so funny. And I love the paneling too, how it's like kind of just off, like, you know, it's not like wind up 100%. It's kind of, you know, turned to the side right here and then differently turned right there. I just
it's all breaking apart, just like he's doing to the vehicle. Yeah.
And the uncle, of course, with his motives right here. You know, the brother got the spotlight. It should have been me. And then right here, I love this too. It looks like you're going to be getting what you deserve, your own private room. So I love how it has that catchiness to it too.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously one of my favorite characters growing up was Spider-Man, and he always had the quips and everything else. And I don't want her to necessarily be all quippy, but at the same time, like her throwing in a line here or there, you know, kind of plays into who she is. So
right here too, we see her throw the smoke bombs down, and this is where we get a glimpse of the one villain that Yeah. So this is a villain, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say, it exhibits very bad guy energy.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Yeah. She is a villain. Like I said, she's a Polish deity of death. She is brought in by Jormungand to kind of track Jamie down. So we will definitely see more of her in future issues. She's a fun character because as much as like Ari's a lot of fun to write because he talks a lot, which we see in the second issue, and he's kind of like my comic relief character in a lot of respects. Marzana doesn't talk much. She's very purposeful. She speaks when she needs to. She does send out that whistle effect that kind of like lets you know her presence is around. And I always felt like that is something very common in mythology, is like you always hear certain stories about certain mythological beings that like you'd hear a whistle in the distance or something
very
like
menacing too. Yeah,
very creepy. Yeah, very ominous and everything else. So I loved having that in there for her.
So we get a nice little right here. I love this little scene too.
Yes.
So is this going to be the color of the Hoverbike then?
Yes. Yeah, that's the color going forward. And it was just awesome. And then Hana, our dog, she always wore a blue collar, so we had the blue collar. We put the little blue bandana on her and stuff like that. So
this almost feels like a Ninja Turtle nod too.
Right? Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. So, and then we have the angry Mr. Fredericks there trying to take care of his roses and her flying over. So. And
then this was a really interesting page too. Is this just a print, or is this going to have some relevance?
Yeah. So we did do. So it's. What we wanted to do, and we did this for both issues so far, is we wanted to kind of show the quote-unquote further adventures of Stealthhammer. We felt like, because we do want to find a publisher, we do want to get this published through somebody, so we can kind of tell the stories a little bit more frequently and get the story really going. So we thought a great way to do that is kind of show them the potential of where the stories can go and what we can do. I
love this so much. There's
so
much
there's so many references in this.
Yes.
Thing. I cannot tell you how many. So these creatures are called Tokolosh. They're from African mythology, and they're kind of like my Gremlins characters. And
like right here, the what is it? The like the rat racer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then you got Krang in the upper and the right over there.
This looks like a Superman knockoff right here too.
Oh yeah, there's Superman is in there. There's there's like the Wicked Witch of the West is in there somewhere. Right there's Superman. Except he's being held up by a balloon. Yeah. Which is hilarious. There's a Masters of the Universe. The spinning blade thing is a Masters of the Universe thing. He threw in Centurions from the 80s are in there. There's a Green Goblin reference in there. There's an Iceman reference in there.
Yeah, right here.
Right there. Yeah, there's Iceman. Yep.
Go Gadget.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, well, that's a kind of. I think he meant for like a Stiltman reference there. So, but yeah, there's just so much he threw into this.
Vulture.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. And yeah. And so funny behind the scenes again with this. I sent this to my colorist, and he was just like, "You're gonna have to pay me more for this one."
Yeah, you're gonna have to at least give. This is like 5 pages in one.
Right. So we did pay him extra. It was totally worth it. We did have a large print made of it that I sell at conventions because it just begs being at a larger size. So you can really take in.
So is this going to be in a comic? Is this going to be a page of a comic?
There'll be a page where they are being chased, where Ari and Watts are being chased by Tokolosh and Baba Yaga, which is the witch that's in the upper right and everything. So yeah, there'll be a element of this, probably not to this detail, but yeah. So basically, the Tokolosh are created by. They're created by an evil dark magic witch.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look up dark magic witch in mythology, Baba Yaga comes up all the time. So I was like, all right, let's just use her.
And then, so right here is kind of like a glimpse into the future, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, she's in Iceland already, and she's heading to get trained with the use of her powers and everything else. This was originally a 5-page preview that we created the first time we did a Kickstarter. We just kind of wanted to show people what the story would be like and what the art would be like, and this was with Alexandra. Our first Kickstarter just wasn't successful, and we learned a lot from it, and our second Kickstarter was very successful. Unfortunately, Alexandra just things just didn't work out as far as having her continue with us. So that's why I ended up finding Joel, and it worked out beautifully. But yeah, I still wanted to use this. It basically became like a bonus for the people to help back the Kickstarter. I was like, okay, I have this 5-page story. I want people to be able to read it. And so, but yeah, this is a flash forward in her story.
I also love how Ari like refers to himself in third person too.
Yes. Ari refers to himself in third person, and Ari also this. I don't know if I did it so much in this 5-page story, but in the second issue, he doesn't use articles very much, so he doesn't use us and thes and things like that. In this story, he might. In the 5-page, he might, because I had.
And we get the ground. I bet your artist is like, "Oh my God, why are you doing this again, Ryan?" So yeah, this is awesome. I love too. Ari's like, must be a savage beast. Is a dog just snoozing? I mean, how much of a time difference is this from the first issue to now? Because the dog is still alive, so it can't be too far off.
Right. So this is actually a story element that will be in issue 4. So this actually I'm actually planning on having Joel redraw this. I'm going to redo the script for it, kind of make sure the verbiage and everything else works. Because like I said, Ari especially, I want to make sure that he's speaking the way he is consistently. But this will become part of issue 4, the story that we're telling in issue 4 with Joel's art. But yeah, I didn't want to waste it. I thought it was a great story. It'll be pretty much exactly how you see it here, other than Joel's interpretation of how the script would be. So. And
then right here, she gets a little glimpse of Mari's. Is it Marzana?
Marzana, yep.
Yeah, it's dude, very scary and menacing.
Yeah.
I love the graphics too, just the way you guys emphasize the green.
Yes.
What's it say right here?
Slice.
So I love how that, I didn't notice that my first time going through, but I'm like, I'm looking now because you said to look, and I'm like, okay, this actually says something.
Yeah. Yep. And
cool. So does she control these wolf rats?
Yes, so they are her pets, and so they're the pack leaders. There are a lot of wolf rats. They're the pack. Chernabog and Belabog are the pack leaders, and she controls them. So, but yeah, and this was also a story where when I worked with Alexandra on this, she was actually surprised that I didn't have Stealthhammer win. That I didn't have Jamie win. I was like, she's not always going to win. And, and that plays into the never giving up.
Well, plus it makes Marzana that much more,
absolutely
brutal. She's not a pushover. She carries some weight.
I am a firm believer that your hero is only as good as your villains. So if I can make my villains that much more of a threat, then my hero coming out at the end of it is going to look that much more.
And so we see her. We see Jamie on the run right here.
Yep.
And she's not wearing the stealth cloak, so she goes to put it on. We also know she's not wearing the goggles either, but this was done before issue one.
This was done before. And there was a little nod to Jurassic Park in there too, when Ari's saying "must go faster, must go faster." That was.
Okay, in the Jeep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then this will definitely be an issue 6 scene where this is the Council of Elders.
Okay.
So these are creatures from mythology and everything else. So this is who she's going to meet, is the goddess Aurora.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And then this was the back cover. This was done by my friend Shannon Gallant, who I mentioned earlier, did G.I. Joe. So that was the back cover image. So, and then he threw in stuff. Three Rivers is not a Pittsburgh reference. In fact, I would be upset if it was, because I am not a Steelers fan. I'm a Browns fan. Although I should say,
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
It's like, I'm used to it. It's been like this for years.
I've been a Browns fan my whole life. I'm used to it at this point. But I should say it originally was a Pittsburgh Steelers thing, because Three Rivers refers back to Skyward that I mentioned earlier. That was actually a city in Skyward. So he put that in there. He put Dagobah in there, even though he spelled it differently for obvious reasons, copyright reasons and stuff. But he knew I was a huge Star Wars fan, so he put that in there, and then he put Eternia in there. And so he had some fun with that.
Yeah, that is cool. Any significance with the numbers?
I don't know.
Because I noticed this says 1980, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so the 1980, I know He-Man came out after that, but I think the 1980 was in there because I do the podcast that's in the 1980s. The 9412 and the 5610, I don't know if there's significance. There might be for him when he put it in there, I'm sure. Because I've done that with mine. Like I think in issue 2, I mentioned that Ari is 216 years old, which is 216, which is Cleveland's area code. So, and then she will live on. It was originally in the script, but it didn't make it into the issue. When she puts the goggles on, it was going to say what her location was, and where she lives is 33 Cleveland Street. So Cleveland again, a nod there, and 33 is my wife's favorite number and lucky number. So there's little things like that get thrown in there. So as I have found many comic creators do.
This is the issue 1 in its entirety. Wow, I appreciate you going through that with me. That was such an awesome time.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Let me move over to our main issue. So before we wrap things up, Ryan, what's next? What can we see happening next in the Stealthhammer world?
Yeah, so I have the first 6 issues mapped out, and that's the first arc, and we will have a nice big cliffhanger ending for issue 6. Right now, like I said, we're still doing the self-publishing thing. We might do a third Kickstarter to get issue 3 out there. I am submitting things to publishers. I'm looking at self-published printers that can get stuff like on Amazon and everything else. We are opening it up also to the potential of just making this, rather than being individual comic issues, into making it maybe just a graphic novel.
That'd be really cool too.
Yeah, especially because it seems like that's where all ages stuff is kind of heading. So it would be very easy to convert this into a graphic novel format. So we're kind of, like I said, trying to get it out there as far as like through some digital platforms and things like that to get some attention to it. I am submitting to publishers. Like I said, we're kind of talking with some self-published publishers that are out there where they can get it out into stores and everything else. And like I said, for that, we might go the graphic novel route. But yeah, we've been very successful. We've, in my opinion, just locally selling. We've sold through issue 1. We sold over 600 copies of it.
Okay, let's go. That's awesome.
Pretty awesome. My local comic shop, Carol and John's, who are amazing. They're like the largest comic shop in Cleveland area. They sold 120 issues of it, and it was just awesome. I was on the local news. I was on Good Day Columbus. I got to be on Toledo News. I got to be in Cleveland Magazine. Like, it just started spiraling, and like
that is so awesome though.
Yeah, it got a lot of awesome local attention. But our goal obviously is, I don't want to just be Cleveland, or I don't want to just be Ohio. I want to kind of get this across the country. So I've reached out to comic shops to see if we can get it in their shop and things like that. And then that's always a challenge. It's a challenge because when they don't know you, and they like to support local talent, but they like to support local talent, not from other states. So I totally get that. I totally understand that. But yeah, we're just trying to get it in as many hands as possible. We have it here in the Cuyahoga County, which is where I live at. We have it in our public library, which is issue 1's in.
That's awesome.
That's a lot of fun. So this way, anyone who wants to read it can. But yeah, just trying to get it out there, get attention to it. I've had a lot of people who didn't need to be saying something just say like, yeah, you've got something here. Like, you're building a world, and like, don't give up on it. And I'm like, well, considering that the theme of the story is to never give up, it would be bad if I did that. So
no, absolutely. That's so awesome. Speaking of never giving up, before we wrap up things completely, as much as this is a podcast to kind of really promote you and your work, it's also a nice little learning tool for anyone that might be new and watching and maybe drawing inspiration. So with that in mind, for anyone that's having trouble just getting started with their own idea, or getting started with just even writing in general, what type of advice would you give them to help them just get started?
I would, one is practice. Just write, like, or draw if you're wanting to be an artist, or you're wanting to do both. Just keep at it. Like, I went on to like Global Comics, it's a digital platform, and I saw something on there that was just like very rough, but they were putting it out there for people. Like, and for all I know, they're just starting out, and they're just going to keep getting better. And the only way you get better at any of this stuff is just keeping at it. Yeah. And ask. I would say the 2 other big things is ask for honest feedback from people that you trust. Like, yes, you're going to get people that love you and care about you and want to tell you, oh, what you're doing is great. But you want to hear from the people that are going to tell you things that you need to work on, and the things like, yes, you don't want to talk to the people that are going to bash you and destroy your hopes and dreams, but you want to
be like, hey, you tighten this up.
Yeah, exactly. And then experience, like, just going out and experiencing the world. Like, you heard me going through the issue, like certain things that created inspirations for me and everything else, like going out there and just, jot down the idea, take your phone with you and stuff like that, and just jot down on there, like, something that caught your eye, made you think of something. It might not be an idea you use right away, but maybe it's something that sparks something later. So, but yeah, like, if you can't, like I said, I was fortunate. I've been able to go to a few places in the world. I've been to London, I've been to Iceland and things like that. But if you can't do that, that's not feasible for everybody. Like, just leave your city, go to another state.
Step outside,
Right. Yeah, exactly. But like, just kind of experiencing other places and other people and their cultures and how they live and everything else can bring so much depth to your story. So, but yeah, and just never give up. Like, that's the end thing, is just keep at it. Like, it's easy to get discouraged. I get discouraged every single day. But then there's also things that, like being on a show like yours, that pump me up. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Okay, let's crank out another 10 pages. So yeah, that's the advice I'd give to people.
No, that is awesome, Ryan. I appreciate that so much. Anytime I get advice that is, off the norm, off the beaten path, and that it's always good. That is, I think, one of the best we've heard, is just to never give up. Always keep going, because you'll find that mental endurance, is going to serve so many purposes later on in life too.
Oh yeah, we ran into so many hurdles. Like I said, first Kickstarter wasn't successful. It would have been very easy to be like, all right, no one wants this. But no, you learn from mistakes, and even though our first one was successful, the second one ended up being successful, but it was a slog to get. It came down to the last day and everything else. It was, we just really had to keep at it, keep pushing. I think I worked harder getting the word out for the second Kickstarter than I ever did for the first one.
Yeah. Well, I heard a thing, like a lot of people, friends and family, especially want to support that first issue, but then after the second one, they're like, "Oh, we already gave you your one." So. Yeah,
exactly. Thankfully, I did have a lot of friends and family that came back for the second one, but yeah, we're just trying to create an audience for this. But I'm appreciative of shows like yours. That's another thing too. If you have something that you've already created, get the word out there. Like, reach out to shows like yourself and things, saying, "Hey, I'd love to talk about this. Here's what I have." And thankfully there's no shortage of shows that love to talk about this stuff. So
no, so absolutely
great. So
no, I appreciate that, guys. With that being said, it is time for us to wrap things up. It is a beautiful Saturday, not here in Ohio though. It was raining. I think the sun might be coming out a little bit.
It is out right now. Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be coming this way in not too long. But with that being said, I do want to give a big shout out to Ohio Hype. Both are Ohio creators, so anytime we get that happening, I'm very excited to have that happen. Everyone watching, I hope you have an awesome time, but most importantly, keep it geekly.